The program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I am your host, Sara Higdon. Special episode today. We do our Monday shows at 7 o'clock live. This episode is pre-recorded, so it is not live, but it's going to be a great episode either way. Special interview segment. So Monday is the news show, and right now we do some Thursday interviews. So today I have the pleasure of hosting the one and only Lou Perez.
Hey, you got me right in the middle of a stretch.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought you were raising your hands because I was pulling you into the space, and it was like, yes, I'm here.
Coming down. Yeah, I feel I'm on a roller coaster right now. So yeah.
Cool. So Lou, you are a comedian, but also a writer. So why don't you just kind of introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. So like Sara said, I'm a comedian and an author. Yeah, I'm not just a writer anymore. I put so much writing together into a book that I became an author. So I wrote a book called That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, on the death and rebirth of comedy. And I'm a producer too. So I produce sketch comedy and videos and all that stuff. Yeah.
Now, how long have you been doing like the sketch comedy stuff? Because we've met up in the last year, 2 years maybe, and that's when we started to really talk and interact and get to know each other a little bit. But I know you've been kind of doing this for a while. So how long have you been going at it?
Yeah, I think I've been doing, 20 years. Yeah, I started in college, so I'm 41, and 20 years feels so long ago. So yeah, I started doing improv and sketch comedy as an undergrad at NYU. So since then, I've been doing comedy, and whether it's live sketch comedy or producing sketch comedy videos on for YouTube. I was there in the early days of YouTube when it came out. So yeah, 2 decades of doing this stuff.
Now, how are you still able to be on YouTube? Because your videos get pretty racy. So I don't know. Are you monetized at all?
I think, yeah, I am monetized. I don't know how monetization works. One of the great things about YouTube, the earlier days, is when they started reaching out to groups to have these partnerships. And my comedy duo, Greg and Lou, I'm the Lou, Greg is another guy. We started monetizing our videos, and it was really cool where, you'd turn around and every month you'd have, however many, hundreds of dollars in there. And it would really help us to at least produce more videos,
Yeah.
And then one of our biggest videos, it's a video called Wolverine's Claws Suck. And I think it's been around maybe 15 years and has over 19 million views on YouTube. And that was our cash cow. That was the video that, that would get all the ad revenue. And then one day we got a notice that was saying that, they weren't going to be monetized. They were going to be demonetizing it. And it wasn't a political thing at all. When I hear a lot of people, there've been a lot of victims of demonetization, due to their politics or the subjects that they cover. Ours, it wasn't about subject matter. It was about gore. The video itself is really gory. There's a lot of fake blood. And it was oh man, here it was. This is our magnum opus. This is the thing that has the most views and is getting us the most money. So I mean, we're how many years removed from that? So yeah, there are a few videos of mine that get monetized. I post my stuff on YouTube, but it's every time I post, I'm not really looking at it. It's like, oh, this is the money maker. It's
Yeah.
more of like, hey, there's still a possibility of building an audience on YouTube for me. So I'm going to do that. But it feels like a lot of I've been getting a lot of good views on Twitter. So out of nowhere, here's this other site that seems to have become a new place to actually get some eyes on my material.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, I've started doing all these live shows that I'm doing are going up on Twitter as well now and actually last week I did a video and I was sure that YouTube would at least demonetize it, but they didn't. It was about the Sound of Freedom and what I really think the issue that the media had with it. And I was basically daring them to like give me a strike on my channel or something. It didn't happen, but I think, with Twitter being as open and free speech as it is, if they can get the video content up there, it's going to be a great platform.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how amazing Facebook used to be. And what was amazing about Facebook was you could post one-liners, you could post essay length posts, you could put videos up, and then later on you could live stream and all that. And then you would be able to have these, long form conversations in the comments. And it was great as a comedian, as a creator, putting your stuff out there and being able to get eyes on it. And what was really what I think was really good about it too, is it was sort of like this one-stop shop where it's like, oh, cool. I could, there are people who spent a good part of their lives on Facebook, whether it's with, friends and family or getting into arguments. And it was like, great, here we have this one space where you could do everything. And then of course, Facebook sucks now, and it sucked for quite a few years. And it's like, oh man, now I got to go make a new thing. I got to go make a new, a new profile. And then what was the recent thing? Threads. I made a Threads. I don't think anybody's on that now. It's only lasted like a few weeks. Yeah, exactly. So I would really love, whether it's Twitter, whether it's something else, I would love for there to just be like one platform where I'm like, okay, I know that if I put my stuff up there, it's going to be seen, and I could actually get the kind of engagement that I want to get as somebody who's a performer,
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's so hard sometimes to break through on some of these other platforms, because like YouTube, there's how many million people are on YouTube now? It's so hard to just even get into the algorithm. I mean, I've heard even back in 2015, it was like all you had to do was make any content and you were getting, hundreds of thousands of views on videos. It was a lot easier to grow the channel as it is now. Now you have to fight the algorithm to even get into it, to try to get any views on your stuff. And I do know, so I mean, Elon has said that he wants to make Twitter the everything app, and he's done that when he has ad revenue going to creators. There's a lot of good stuff I think coming. I think they're just behind the ball. I think it's slow coming. Like I don't have subscriptions. I've been waiting on my subscriptions for months now, and so it's just like but I'm hopeful for the future there. Now you and actually it's interesting you mentioned the Wolverine clause, because I think I saw that for the first time just before Freedom Fest. It just like popped up. Maybe when I was looking at your channel, because when you had me on, I was looking at something, but all of a sudden it put that video into my algorithm. So it's still
YouTube's there. It's like, Sara, you need this. You need this video.
See this.
Yeah.
This is the video that put Lou up here. So you need to
put Lou around here. Wherever. Yeah. I'm literally lower than I am. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But it was interesting. So kind of talking about your content, you've recently partnered with some of my favorite people over at Free the People. So how did that come about?
Yeah. So for those viewers out there who might not know Free the People, it's Matt and Terry Kibbe. That's their baby, their organization. And for years, they've been making really great documentary content. Matt has podcasts. They do a lot of live events around the world speaking about liberty and freedom and beer. I think they talk a lot of, definitely drink a
They talk
lot.
a lot
They
about
drink a lot of
alcohol,
beer.
yeah.
They talk about wine
Yeah.
and beer and all that. Yeah, I first met Matt, I think through, sort of like the liberty movement, different events. And we've been, fans of each other's work for years. And then we had talked about like, oh, it would be great to, do something together. And we finally had the opportunity this year. So we're doing a comedy series called Comedy is Murder. And we are three videos in. We got a new video coming out at some point this month. And yeah, it's I'm back to making like high production value, really funny satire, and I've been having a blast doing it.
Well, that's and you nailed it, because one thing you said is the high production value, and I think that's whenever I mention your stuff or I show people, especially like my favorite video is the misgendering murder video, obviously. I actually have it pulled up so we can possibly show it. We'll show it at the end as we log off, but it's the production quality that you guys are putting on these videos. I think it's impressive, and it's again, it's hard because you don't want to get bogged down into you don't want to get bogged in an algorithm when you're putting out such great content. And so, but you've been just dropping everything on Twitter lately, so which is great.
Thanks. Can I talk about, like when it comes to the video, to videos, I mean, with the way that technology, has gone, I mean, the stuff that you can shoot just with your phone and have it look great is pretty amazing. And, anybody can pick up, editing software and learn to edit and all that. So, that's definitely, made it easier. And I think like, if you go back, however many years to like Key and Peele, I think they raised the bar significantly for sketch comedy, as far as like what sketch comedy can look like, especially the sketches that they did that were parodies of like of action or suspense, like just looking beautiful, just looking so beautiful and being hilarious too. So it's sort of like I look at the stuff that that they did, and I'm very much like I enjoy playing things real, like treating like the reality, like this is some what's happening in this scene is it's real. We're not campy or anything like that. So being able to mimic or pay homage to different genres is really important for me.
Well, it's I mean they've built, like you said, Key and Peele, you had the Chappelle Show, you had these sketch comedy stuff that just kind of took over, right? I mean, it's a whole genre of stuff. But I like what you're saying when it's like, honestly, I think some of the most impressive is when you put something out there and people don't know it's satire. So I actually have this. I could pull this one up. Lou. This one right here is great. So let's play this clip.
Sure.
This morning, I came to my local school playground to talk to children about sex and gender. No, I'm not a teacher, but I know for sure they're not learning any of these lessons in their school. And I want to change that. Unfortunately, the principal came out and told me to leave. I refused, naturally. She then said she was going to call the police. How unfortunate. But here's a promise I make to you right now. Whether it's a child in kindergarten or a police officer, if they meet me here on this playground, they're going to get a lesson in sex and gender. Do the work, get out there, go to your local playground, start a conversation. This morning,
I don't know. I want to go on the record. I don't know who that person is. I don't know where that video came from. So if anybody out there, I had to share it. The world needed to know about that.
About that person just at the school telling kids about sex and gender. So
yeah, that video is it's fun because I think I first released that probably like over a year ago, and then I re-released it, reshared it. I guess not. There wasn't like a big theatrical release. It's like, yeah, we're gonna get this big theatrical release for a minute long video, and so I reshared it some months back, and a bunch of like really prominent people like on the right in the online the world shared it and thought it was serious. So it got just like a ton of views, and I got a ton of death threats. So my favorite one of my favorite things that people say is like, I want this guy's address. Like they're going to show up, and I know, like, well, the real tough guy thing is to provide your address and then allow the chips to fall as they may.
Yeah.
But yeah, the amount of people who just wanted to string me up or shoot me or do any sorts of terrible things to me is pretty amazing. But then also the amount of people who are like, no, it's Lou Perez, he's a comedian, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then responses to that were often of the variety of, well, I don't care if he's a comedian, he's giving these people ideas. Like,
it's like you're putting into video like satire. I mean, that's what makes good satire, though, is a lot of times when you don't know. And what's getting harder is satire, like, the world feels so ridiculous sometimes. How do you keep up? That's the question. How do you keep up in a world that is so ridiculous and trying to make satire in this environment?
Oh, I mean, it could be tough. I mean, for one, you can get by a lot. You can fool a lot of people if you're just able to keep a straight face. I think that's sort of that's one of the keys. But as far as a world that's just gone, more and more mad. Look at someone like there's a English comedian and author, Andrew Doyle, who he has a character. Was it Titania McGrath? I think is the name. It was like the character's just like an ultra woke, just all the way out there. And there are a number of jokes that Titania had, put online that eventually came true, where it's like either Titania is a psychic or Titania actually like controls the world. And I think one example of it was something like, I don't know if I think it was Mary Poppins calling out Mary Poppins for having blackface. And I think anyone who's seen the movie knows it's not blackface. It's like coal, from like, I guess, the chimney sweeps or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I think there was an article in the New York Times talking like saying we need to have a conversation about this. So it's it's wild. I mean, it's there's something obviously fun about it, but I think if you're a normal person, you're like, oh, this is a little scary too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always been the jokes that the Simpsons are predicting the future. They have time machines because, I mean, Trump on the gold escalator, like, they made it happen, but, and that's the other, I mean, the Babylon Bee, they predict things all the time. And it's just like, what is going on? Because when satire becomes reality, that's when things get scary. I think we're living in a satirical time plus like a Black Mirror time, right? Like all the technology that's coming out is scary because you're like, wait, I've seen this episode on Black Mirror. I don't think this is where we want to go, like with AI and everything.
It seems like there's there's a lot happening all at the same time, like there's a lot that's going on, and it's really, it's very tough to focus on, on one thing, like it feels like, like you bring up like artificial intelligence. I mean, that's something that's happening and should scare the shit out of everybody. And yet it's one of, a dozen other things that are happening at the same time, while also, the fact that there's super entertaining stuff happening on Twitter and online to, to divert some of our attention to. And, my apologies for being a small part of that.
Well, no, you're like you diverting the attention is a good thing, because when your timeline is filled with all of this scare tactics and everything like that, you need the comedy in there to be like, okay, I could still laugh at something, to bring you back up. Actually, one of my pro tip on Twitter is follow like these accounts that always show pictures of dogs and cute animals, because then like every like 10th tweet on your timeline is a cute animal, and you're like, okay, I can keep scrolling.
That's a really, I think that's really good advice, because last night my wife had told me about this horrible murder that had happened in Brooklyn at it was at a gas station, and this young man who was a dancer, he was stabbed to death. There was it was like he was the way that it's been described was he and his friend stopped at a gas station to fill up. There was a song on, and he started voguing, and there were some young men at the gas station who took issue with that. And I believe the young men were Muslim or something. It ended up, some kind of, words were exchanged, scuffle, and this poor guy was freaking stabbed to death. And I went to bed, thinking like, oh my, this poor guy. Then I woke up today, and I ran a search for it, and I started reading, the article and watching, some of the footage, and in the local sort of in the local stream of news, if you scroll down, it was all like murder, rape, all this. And I was thinking like, holy shit, like if I spent like my everyday just checking out local news, I mean, all it would be filled with is just murder and mayhem, so it's really important to have, to give you, not only to not have to just deal with that, to have a little bit of like, oh, there's also some sweet stuff happening in life that, we should pay attention to.
No, you're absolutely right. I was writing an article about Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, and it was like, I was writing an article about, it was just a news story about somebody who was murdered, same thing. And it was like, I Googled to try to find, more articles to figure out, get more information on it. Right. And it was like every other story was a different murder that happened within the last 3 days. And I was like, exactly what you just said. So, which is, again, you just need that. You need that relief. But when you're talking like satire now, so with satire, I think the best part about it is you're able to reach an audience and almost inform how ridiculous causes, like things that are happening, are, like in a comedic way. Like you're able to like make it seem like it's happening, but then in a comedic way. Like, but how do you where do you get the creative energy just to come up with something like some of these skits and stuff like that to really play it off of what's actually happening and how comedic it is?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just the way my brain is structured. And I got my good friend Greg of Greg and Lou. I've been doing comedy as long as we've been friends, so we've been working together for like 20 years. And if you hang out with us, it's like every single thing that happens, we're talking about it as like, maybe we could turn this into a bit. And I remember hearing a interview with Jerry Seinfeld on Howard Stern, where Jerry Seinfeld said the same, said a similar thing. And Stern was like, God, that must be exhausting. And it's like, no, it's great. I mean, that's how we communicate. It might be exhausting and annoying for people who aren't comedians to hang out around us, because all we're doing is talking about bits. And we're also, in our conversation, we're having callbacks to jokes that we made 20 years ago in a sketch that nobody's ever seen, So a lot of it just starts with it's kind of like, well, that's the way we see and we experience the world. And then with that, there's like the 20 years of experience of producing, where it's like, oh, well, what if we did go down this route? Like, can we develop this into into something that can sustain a 3 to 5 minute sketch? And then it's like, oh, well, well, we could do that, but can we make it really funny? Yeah, I think we could make this really funny. So it's a number of elements, and it's like, there are tons of things that we've, really funny ideas that will probably never see the light of day for any number of reasons. It might be budgetary concerns. It might be like Greg and I, we wrote a spec script for a sitcom where, we think, it was very funny, but the plan was for us to play the two main guys, and we have drastically aged out. Like we can't play like these, like, doofy, I don't know, doofy. We can't play 25-year-olds. Like, nobody's going to believe that this guy with all this salt and pepper, way more salt than pepper, is going to play 25. So.
I mean, what do you mean? You played a woman, so
that is true. Misgendering a murderer. I took a role from an actress. I stepped in.
You did.
It was a role of a lifetime. So
I mean, it was a great role. Want to talk about this one though too, because you talked about how when you put that that one out, that they got all this right wing attention, which it's like half the people, like big names, were like, wait a second, no, that's Lou Perez. What are you talking about? But you said you got some death threats on that, and so what gun did you choose to go with?
Well, yeah. Well, I was actually I wanted to talk to you because you're a veteran, and I know you're armed. I was wondering if you had any suggestions. I'm a family man. What's a good gun for a family man? So.
Well, it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you probably more than you're going to be willing to give. And so everybody knows where this joke is coming from. We got it ready to go.
It was after the home invasion that I thought it's time to get a gun for home protection.
But we're still uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, I want to buy a gun, but I don't want to give up my big dick.
It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as gunpowder. Guns are not for self-defense or protection of private property, but for men to compensate for their small penises. But in a world where only small cocks are packing heat, what are the well-endowed to do? I came to this quiet town in suburban New Jersey to sit down with George Johansson, a husband, father, and well-hung homeowner.
We never felt unsafe. My husband's penis is massive. How could anyone do us harm?
But it turns out even the most massive of schlong owners can be victimized.
We were in bed when I heard the sound of glass breaking.
And you sleep naked?
Yeah.
Were you aroused?
No. But by the time I ran downstairs to see what was happening, I was fully erect.
So you confronted the burglars with your erection?
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing?
And then what happened?
They beat the shit out of me.
What are you doing?
So they didn't back off at the sight of your enormous wang?
No.
The first time I saw George's penis, I screamed. I was so scared of it.
Did you try to hit them with it, George?
Of course.
And?
They just
punched your massive dong out of the way.
It's like it wasn't even there.
I imagine it's very hard to subdue a home intruder with just your penis.
Yeah, it's not like what you see in the movies.
What movies are you watching?
In the wake of the attack, George attempted to purchase a gun, but there was a problem.
I thought I can get around the background check, but anyone who's ever tried to buy a gun knows that they measure your cock right there on the spot. It's not what the founding fathers had in mind.
Weeks after we first met, George Johansson decided to go under the knife in order to exercise his Second Amendment rights. George's penis reduction surgery went so well that he was legally allowed to purchase not one, but 2 rifles. But was his sacrifice worth it?
Do I miss my big penis? Yes. Does my wife miss my big penis?
Yes.
Do our kids miss my big penis?
Yes.
But what's most important is that we're safe and our home is protected. right?
Okay.
I mean,
I love that piano, that piano music. I figured
it's
that piano was played with a penis. So
wait, was it? I mean, you've seen the clips of of Zelensky, the Ukrainian president.
Oh no, I didn't. I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen that one?
No.
I mean, he used to be a stand-up. He used to be a comedian too before he was president. And
Yeah.
there's a clip of him online playing a piano with his penis.
Wow. Is it legit or is it like?
No, it's real.
Wow. Does he sound good?
Yeah.
Is he like Billy Joel? Ukraine's Billy
I
Joel.
don't. I don't think he was that good, but no. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I bought an AR-15 in my reduction, so
I heard there was a girl. Yeah, it's funny because I spoke to a friend of mine who was in the Navy, and he's been like a firearms instructor and all that. And I had talked to him, and he's like, yeah, actually, if you are looking for one, he would say, the AR-15, because it's something that, you could be a big dude and you can handle it. You could be more petite. You could be petite. You can handle it. So it's a great
rifle for women, especially to handle, because it's small, light, and doesn't have a lot of recoil. But I mean, I probably could have gotten a 50 cal in my situation. So,
holy shit. Someone's gonna be like, yeah, Sarah, where's the OnlyFans? We gotta see what's happening. So.
Yeah, that's not happening. But yeah, so let's talk about the book for a little bit.
Sure.
The joke isn't funny anymore. What made you want to author a book? Not right, because you're not
author
an author.
Yeah. the authorized version of this book. Well, it came out of an article that I wrote in the Wall Street Journal. Where is it? Over my shoulder, right here on the floor.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's the Wall Street Journal. And the title of the article was "How I Became a Quote Far Right Radical," and it was a response to a paper that came out. It was a pre-published paper that basically called We the Internet TV, which is the old comedy channel that I was a producer and head writer for. It called We the Internet Far Right, and the paper was about they called it the growth of right-wing echo chambers on YouTube. So not only was We the Internet TV considered far right, but so was Joe Rogan, Brett Weinstein, and just a number of other people who were just nowhere near far right. So the piece in the Wall Street Journal was my response to it by, basically saying, well, they got it wrong. And also in the times that we're living in, where I had recently just lost my job working for on the We the Internet TV project. And there I was, like, putting my resume together and looking for jobs. And it's like, labeling me far right or my work far right, like that could get in the way of a career. So from out of that article came the book. So, yeah. So all you kids out there with a dream of writing a book, I don't know. I got lucky, I guess,
I mean, even if you can do it, anybody can do it, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, Michael Malice, or my friend, that's some of the advice that he often gives. It's like, if you write a book, it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It could be the best book that you can write, and boom, you're an author forever. So
yeah, I mean, I listened to it on the whole drive to Freedom Fest, and I enjoyed it. I think I think, honestly, not to take away from your book sales, but I think people should listen to the audio version of it because it's funny. And I don't know if you can get the same comedy reading it in written form, because delivery is very important. And so that is one thing that I want to recommend to people, but I don't like to read that much anyways. I just like audiobooks anyways, but it was very good. And I think, I mean, you went into a lot of important topics that we're seeing today. One of the ones that I've been even talking a little bit about is this whole notion of punching up and punching down, right? And so you had a whole chapter on that. And so, yeah, because that's an issue with comedy. You can't punch up, you can't punch down. So like, where do you see the issues like in that realm?
Well, yeah, it's one of these, it seems like in recent memory, I've been hearing a lot about, comedy punches up, it doesn't punch down. And I've also heard that expressed along with things like comedy is supposed to speak truth to power. And I was trying to figure out, like, why is it that I'm just hearing about this so much now, as opposed to like when I was starting out, where it's sort of, for me, the rules of the game were, can you make this funny? How can you make this funny? And if it's funny, it works. Okay, go for it. And with the truth to power thing, it was like that power component I found interesting, because it was like, well, when did comedy go from just speaking the truth or some version of the truth, or what you view as the truth? And the reality is, well, if you are speaking the truth, well, sometimes you're going to hurt people who might be marginalized, who might be, in the minority, who might be the downtrodden, if you're speaking truth. So you add this power component to it. So it's like, all right, leave them alone and just, punch up, to those in power. Overall with the whole, like, comedy doesn't punch down, I find that there's like something that's just so condescending about it. This idea of like, well, I can't make fun of you because you're below me, so maybe if you were, more important or at higher stature, then, I could, I can launch some jokes your way. But until then, sorry,
Yeah.
So I find it, it's pretty, just condescending. It's like a little smug, overall.
Yeah. And I agree. Actually, the first YouTube video, and actually the only one that I've had that really blew up, was responding to the Dave Chappelle special talking about trans people. And that's really the first time I started hearing this whole notion of punching down. And you're right. Like, if you think that you're punching down on me, like you can't make fun of people like me, then that's not inclusive, that's exclusive. Like, that means that you don't feel that I'm worthy enough to make jokes about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, and it's funny because hearing a lot of this stuff, punching up, punching down, speaking truth to power. It's also at a time where the genre of like the comedy roast battle is really, is really sprung up. I don't know if if the roast battles are as popular as they were, maybe a few years ago. I think probably COVID, played a role in, kind of diminishing it a little bit, because fewer people getting together, for live comedy. But like roast battles are about like taking those, taking the stereotypes of your opponent and using them, So, if you're going against a trans, comedian, you're going to make jokes about that person being trans. If you're a fat guy, they're going to make jokes about you being a fat guy. And there's sort of this understanding there, where it's like, well, these are the rules of battle, and that's how we're going to go about it. So it's wild to see these like examples of, I think, of strength in roast battles with, marginalized people. And then on the outside of it, people saying like, no, you're this is going to hurt you, if you, if someone were to come at you with this stuff.
Yeah. I actually made the joke one time too, that I don't like to talk about Dylan Mulvaney that much, because I don't feel like punching down at Dylan Mulvaney, because that is how I view Dylan. It's like not even worth my time, because I do put myself above somebody like that. It's like playing to their stereotypes and stuff like that. But with that type of stuff, I mean, we're in an era of like cancel culture. So if you're a comedian, how do you, comedy has always kind of stepped over that line or towed the line of what is acceptable in culture. I mean, your videos are proof, like we just showed earlier, like there's a line, and so how do you toe that, or do you just jump in and know that you're gonna piss some people off, and it's gonna overstep those bounds?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that we are seeing like a light at the end of the tunnel with cancel culture. I feel like there's been so much talk about it that I think enough comedians are saying like, look, I'm just going to put out what I think is funny, and thankfully I have an audience who's able to support me, and what more do you need? What more do you need to continue to do your stuff? And so I think it's definitely feels like a better time to be doing comedy than maybe a few years back where people were really worried about it. And I think there's just so many examples of people doing taking on subject matter that's controversial and doing a good job of it, where it's like, oh, if so and so can do it, well, then why can't I do it?
Yeah. Well, I think when you have, titans in the industry that aren't backing down and, just
That's
bowing to
important.
cancel culture.
That's really important. Yeah.
When John Cleese said no, I'm not taking the Loretta scene out of Life of Brian, I think that was very important, just to, for all comedians to be like, no, we don't have to bow to this. This is comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's huge. And you've seen it with, I think Chappelle you bring up, Ricky Gervais, Joe Rogan has definitely been there for a lot of comedians. I think that's totally important, because I think there's always been like this question of, well, how many people are actually offended by this stuff versus how many people are just vocal about it, vocal about being offended, and taking those those numbers into account. And I think for the most part, I think most people just go, they hear something they don't like, they go about their day, as opposed to they hear something they don't like, they write a blog post, they try to get signatures, a petition to get people to shut up.
Well, that is part of the internet too, though. I mean, and it is kind of something that I've like to talk about too, is like, you realize on the internet with social media, there's a lot of trolls that make a lot of noise when that's not really the reality of real life. I would say that, the internet's not real because it's not the same. Now, like if you go out to comedy clubs, are you still, are the crowds coming back after COVID? I guess that's the first question.
Oh yeah, I mean, from the people that I know who own clubs and stuff, like business is great. Yeah, business is doing really well. I don't know. I don't know if like new clubs are opening up, or I don't know how many clubs are around, but I think there is that hunger to see live comedy, because I think there's something about live comedy that you just have to be there to really to experience it. And because I mean, I've seen comedians with comedy specials on Netflix, comedians who I've seen live, and I'm like, oh man, like you really can't capture what it's like to be in a room with these people while they're performing live. There's just something, there's an energy there that is just really it's hard to describe unless you're there. So I think there's still a desire for people to have that real human experience of laughing in public with other people. So.
Yeah. And possibly you get to see one of the things that you talked about in your book. I think you had a whole about bombing, which is something that stand-up comedians, anything you got to give credit to, because they go out there and they could just totally tank the audience might not take anything that they say and think it's funny, and then you have to go deal with that. So how do you get past that?
Man, am I past that? Am I like there's still like I'll still have like flashbacks every now and then to, times when I've bombed. I think one way that's helpful to deal with bombing is knowing that every single comedian has bombed, like from the greatest comedians out there to people just starting out. So in a way, it's sort of like, how I am connected to Jerry Seinfeld or Bill Burr or any number of comedians is that, well, they've all bombed, and so have I. So it's sort of, I think going in with the understanding that it's part of the job, that it's going to happen, I think is really important. And then I think also just being focused and knowing that, well, this isn't the last show I'm going to do. There will be other shows, there will be other crowds, and I'll get through this. And then just I don't know. Maybe right now I'm having a little flashback.
Is it now? Because in your book you described the when you played at somebody that had seen you play and they were like, you were amazing, and then you went to like their work group or something. What was the story that you had told?
Oh yeah, they're in the book. There are a couple. One of them is a guy, a black kid, saw me perform on the Upper West Side, and then he said, I would like you to perform for my people, and that's what he used. He said my people, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm looking for a gig. Let me see. And it was a very weird event in Bed-Stuy. It was in the back of like a lounge, and there were only two white people there. There were like these two kind of like weird white guys at the bar, and everybody else in the venue were black. And there was an event happening that I don't know if it was like a fashion show or something. And they were selling in one room. They were selling like adult sex toys too. I was like, what's going on here? And the event was supposed to start at some point. I think we were like felt like a couple of hours after when it was supposed to start. And then it was time for me to do stand-up. And normally, if you're doing stand-up, you have like the host will get up and warm up the audience for you. And this time around, the host got up. He introduced himself as Time of Your Life, which I believe was his stage name, Time of Your Life. And then just said, who here's ready for some comedy? And then brought me up. And nobody there was expecting comedy. And nobody there was definitely expecting me to get up there to do comedy. And I opened with what I thought was going to be a really funny joke. I mean, you could, it's sort of dated. I think we're back in 2008. And I said, to this all black room, I said, wow, I feel like President Obama right now, because I have the opportunity to disappoint so many black people. and I'm glad you're laughing. Nobody was laughing in the room. And it kind of went like that. Yeah. For the next, I don't know however many minutes. And it felt like forever. And it was painful. But you look back how many years later and you're like, well, that's a fun story of pain to be able to tell. And I got through it, and I lived to bomb another day, and I lived to also kill occasionally on other days. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is what's funny about it too, is because you tell that story, and that's a funny story for another set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything's
and everything's material too. It's sort of like going back to like me talking with my long time comedy partner. It's like everything's material. Everything is there to be. That there's something in there that could work as a bit. Whether it's the most painful thing or the happiest occurrence or the most awkward occurrence. And I happen to be a person where mentally the stuff that sticks out the most for me is awkwardness, humiliation, shame, things that I'm not, that I'm not happy with myself about. And that like kind of comes to the forefront, and it's sort of like, okay, we'll do something with it, because if you don't do something with it, then you're going to, end up being like curled up, somewhere, having so many regrets in life. And it's like, well, fuck that. Let me, let me use it.
You might as well live it. I
Yeah.
think that's one thing, like being a military member myself, like that's one thing you get a lot of dark humor, because you go through some shit, and the people that you're with, you're able to joke about the shit you went through. And it's like, okay, yeah, we can laugh at this, even though it was not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I found my fans that served in the military are, some of the best with shit like that. And one of my favorites was there's an exchange going back and forth, and it was I don't know what it was. I think it might've been, there was a joke about abortion or something like that. And then this one guy responded and said, "Oh, so you're saying that you would force a woman to give birth to a retard?" That's how he used. And I said, "No, man, I would never make a woman give birth to a Marine." And he was a Marine, and he was just cracking. He thought that, he just died laughing. He thought that was so funny. So it was really, yeah. So thank you for your service to my comedy. I don't thank any military people for their service in general, but in service to my comedy, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the sacrifice.
And we appreciate that. Well, it's one of those things where we, and usually though, like we have our own inside jokes, especially like the fuse between the services. Like, the Marines are a bunch of crayon eaters. Air Force always stays in hotels.
What kind of eaters are? What kind of eaters
crayons?
Are
They eat crayons.
I say crayons. I'm very cosmopolitan. We get crayons over here. Holy
what? Actually, that takes me back, because the first time I ever got called out for saying it wrong was when I was in the military. Somebody was like, "What'd you just say?" And now I live in Georgia, so it's crayons.
That's right. It's a fancy piece of colored wax that you know. Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, so there's like those inner service, but in a lot of times it's like, we can all make fun of each other, but sometimes when people step from outside and try to, and they're actually meaning it as an insult. See, that's, again, the thing is, when you talk about comedy, even an insult is part of the fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not meant to, make you feel a certain type of way. I think it's supposed to make people laugh, and it should make you laugh if you're not, self-involved. I think that's one thing is that so many people are so self-involved these days that they can't laugh, and they can't laugh at themselves. And that's why we have, you getting death threats for putting out, Nazi punching videos and stuff.
Yeah. I think
Antifa therapy is another good,
thank you.
It's like it's accurate too. It's kind of funny. I could see it happening.
I appreciate that. Well, there is something about, being self-deprecating, which I think is important. And I have, quite a bit of material that I do that is self-deprecating. But what I found is, like, some people will think that, well, if a comedian's self-deprecating on stage, when they get off stage, it's okay for me to deprecate them. Would that be the word? And it's like, nah, dude, like, I'm very comfortable making fun of, myself, and I take light of it, but that doesn't mean I'm just going to let you walk all over me like I'm some nothing. So I've had that. There's been a couple of I've had a couple of very awkward experiences where people tried to do that, and and I've had to shut them down in real life. So
I could see that. Happening. But I mean, self-deprecation is, I think, when you can do that and it makes people laugh. Like, that's anytime if I tell jokes, it's always about at my own expense and the situation that I'm in. And I've also been called sexist for, making jokes about women, because I became one. So it's like the fact that I can drive and stuff like that,
Yeah, you have to start being a shitty driver. Like your parallel parking is way too good.
Well, I can tell you, I clip more curbs now.
Nice.
It does. Yeah, I do. but I was asked one time if I could drive by a good friend of mine. We were going somewhere, and I was like, she was like, Sarah, can you drive? As she was tossing me the keys, I'm like, of course I can drive. I used to be a man, and it was just, and it was it was hilarious. I can't remember. I had this up here, the chapter on the alpha cuck. I remember that being a good chapter.
Alpha.
What
cuck.
is the alpha cuck?
Well, something that I found was, doing satire is, based on whichever video of mine you see, or maybe joke you see, you might get like this. You might make these assumptions about where I stand on all these different political issues just based on that one thing. And most people, they don't like to do any more research other than watching whatever video. Over the years, what I found is that I sort of had this discovery that, like, when I offend people on the left, they get the joke, they don't think it's funny, and they think I'm a bad person for telling it. On the other hand, when I offend people on the right, they don't get the joke, they don't think it's funny, and they think they can kick my ass. So one of the things that was called quite often during the Trump administration was I was called a cuck, and it would often be by guys that no woman would want to sleep with, let alone I would, my wife and I would select to join us in our dojo. So in that chapter, I basically, go through like, okay, well, what would it be like if I actually took one of these, guys up on that offer with their MAGA hats and their, friggin' bald eagle carrying a flag tattoo. What would that night be like? That magical night of them losing their virginity with me in the bedroom with them. So that's where, you go from being a regular cuck to being an alpha cuck. So.
Well, I love that. That's
so all
great.
You alpha cucks out there watching Sarah's program, rise up. Let's get that alpha cuck militia going.
Well, that is what's interesting is, like you said, it is hard to tell like where your politics would fall. I mean, because lately, obviously, you've been doing hard into the culture war aspect. You got the Antifa therapy, but you also went after one of your most recent ones was the the training of the psyops.
Oh, that's right. We did for Free the People in the Comedy is Murder series. We did meet the cast of Patriot Front. And we treated Patriot Front as a huge government psyop, and so every theatrical production starts with a casting call. So here you're gonna see the cast of actors who've auditioned to play this this white supremacist street theater show. And I think with a lot of the stuff, like obviously I'll have my own personal views on a number of things, and I have my own biases, but when it comes to like which jokes I'm going to make or which videos I'm going to go for, it really is going to come down to like, well, is this original and is this funny? Is this an original take on this? Because it'd be very easy for me to just spout the stuff that my side on whichever side of the issue already agrees on, so so that's the challenge too. It's like okay, I might not necessarily believe this thing, but man, that joke is pretty funny, so why don't I see what happens when when I go for it.
Yeah, well, it is pretty easy to do when you have, I mean, personally, I'm in the center, and it's like you have the extremes to the left and the extremes to the right. And now that you're getting called far right, they assume that that's where you're at. But it's like you have funny stuff that you can do on both sides. So I think it's great when you can see that, because then it kind of takes a lot of the politics out of it, right?
Yeah,
so,
and also it's a way to meet people who are actually at those insane extremes that I didn't know really existed. It's like wow, there actually are people out there who want a white ethno state. like, oh shit, I didn't know. Like, I thought that was, I thought those people were just like made up. It's like, no, there are actually a few of them who do want that and are upset with me for not wanting that. It's like, okay, great. There we go.
Yeah. Well, Lou, I want to thank you again for coming on. This was great. I want to make sure I pop this up there so that everybody sees. Go buy the book on Amazon. The joke is not funny anymar. Like I said, I recommend it. I recommend it in the audiobook version. But
Yeah, go for that. I know. I appreciate that. Recording the audiobook. I hope people enjoy it, especially like, I think I'm similar to you. Like, I don't know the last time I've read a book that I sat down and read a book. And a lot of it's just like, man, you need to really make time for that. Where I think,
you're so inundated with everything online now that it's really hard to. So audiobooks are great, especially when you're on a long road trip like that. I listened to your book on the way there. I listened to Stephen Kent's book on the way back, and
nice.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Stephen Kent's a buddy of mine. And talking about time, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but I'm getting a knock on the door, which means my kids are outside wanting to play. So there's no more reading for me. So.
Well, again, why don't you just let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, you guys can follow me at the Lou Perez on social media. TheLouPerez.com is my website. And again, please pick up my book. That joke isn't funny anymore.
And as you guys know, follow me across all social media platforms. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments section. Go follow me on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, where I do post all these videos. And we will see you next time. We're going to go ahead and play Misgendering the Murderer, though.
Did you read the file?
Let's go. Who got you, son of a bitch? 6 women. 6.
Do you own a black Toyota Sienna, Miss Trapper?
Yes.
Is this your car, ma'am?
Why do you keep referring to him like he's a woman?
I thought you said you read the
I've
file.
been tracking this guy for 9 months. I don't need to read it.
The suspect identifies as a she.
What? Is this how you got into the women's shelter? You said you were a woman.
I am a woman.
And a woman's shelter has to accept women.
Nothing in here changes what you did to her. Or her. Or her. Oh, you're a real tough guy, huh?
Woman. Gal. Tough gal.
Tell me something. How did it feel? Did it feel good?
What? When I fell from heaven?
You didn't fall from heaven. You fell from hell.
That doesn't make any sense.
She's right, Jim. That didn't make any sense.
Shut up.
Miss Trapper, where were you on the night of April 17th?
At home, washing my hair.
All night?
You know how us girls are.
Checks out.
We have a witness that puts him at home on the 17th.
No, I'm just saying she's right. Girls love to wash their hair.
That is probably the dumbest stereotype. This shit affects real people. But you're just a psycho looking for a way out. Well, it is not gonna work. You're gonna fucking fry.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? Misogynist. I bet I look like every gal that's ever broken your heart.
Fucking killing myself!
Jim, cool it!
Get off of me!
You gotta play this by the book, man. You gotta respect her journey.
What is going on with you?
My daughter showed me a video on TikTok. It was about gender.
Is your daughter transgender?
No, but she's an ally.
What's an ally?
I don't know, but I have to be an ally. It's a TikTok thing.
What the fuck does that have to do with this?
I have to be an ally if she's ever gonna want to come over to hang out at my house, rather than her mother forcing her to come over. Will you do a TikTok video with me?
No, this guy is not even trans. He's just saying that to manipulate the system.
Is that true?
No.
Well, now I don't know what to believe.
Wanna know what I believe? I believe you identified as a woman to get into the women's shelter to overpower them. Now you want to do the same in prison. How am I doing?
I think you're scared.
Of what?
Seeing a woman stand up for herself.
Other room. Now. What are you two idiots doing?
We just got started, Chief. We'll get the confession.
DNA results came back positive for a man. Why are you wasting your time with a woman?
That is a man.
Then what am I looking at here? Harvey Tripper, female. Female semen. Female semen, not male semen.
Women don't have...
You got 10 minutes, and then you cut her loose.
Chief.
Better yet, get her an escort home. There's a serial killer out there. We don't want her to become his next victim.
Did you show him the fucking TikTok video?
Yeah.